Belgian Grand Prix, another win for Lewis Hamilton, 47-point gap at the championship now. That's looking better and better for him. But it might not have been the case. He took pole position in Belgium, but that's not always the perfect place to start because there's a huge run on the exit of La Source, and then the slipstream effect is big up the Kemmel Straight, but he made it work. The drivers behind basically couldn't pass him, couldn't really challenge him, and let's have a look at why not. So both Hamilton and Bottas were really aware of this Spa scenario where they tow the other one up the top of the hill. And it's the classic way. Sebastian Vettel made it work to overtake Hamilton and win in 2018. So Hamilton was wary of it. And even on the grid, he's pointing to try and open up the first corner. He knows that exit speed from La Source is going to be critical. And as we have the lights go out, Hamilton actually gets away pretty well, but Bottas is right alongside on the way into the first corner. If we switch to Hamilton's onboard, you can just hear he takes a downshift, the final downshift, just at the apex, which puts him down into first gear again. Very short for Formula One. You pretty much never use this in the calendar, maybe in the tightest corners of Monaco. But first gear means that he's going to have a big spike of wheel spin, and he does. As soon as he goes back for throttle in that first gear, he has a big snap, has to back off the throttle. And then if we switch back to Bottas now, to have a look at what it looked like from him, gets away pretty well. He's already drawing alongside Hamilton, and then he's positioned really well on the outside. And there's Hamilton's snap, and Bottas actually has to just blend out of the throttle as well at this point, because Hamilton's just a little bit sideways and basically cutting off his exit as well. But that's all because Hamilton went down to first gear, kind of by mistake. Bottas stayed in second, and that was the gear that you should be using for that corner. But Hamilton was probably so focused on trying to get the best exit, he punched it down one too many and ended up giving himself some wheel spin. But that ended up actually helping him, because if we stay with Bottas now, he's kind of too close at this point to follow Hamilton through Eau Rouge and get the big momentum up the Kemmel Straight. He closes all the way down, and then he kind of catches himself out. He's actually got closing speed enough. Possibly he could look at going round Hamilton on the way down to Eau Rouge. They would probably go side by side into the corner. It would be pretty scary stuff, but the way that he's attacking Hamilton is almost doable that he could do that. The problem with that is that they'd both be slow going side by side through Eau Rouge, and Verstappen and Ricciardo, quite aggressive just behind, would have a big run on both of them and would be four wide. It would be chaotic up the Kemmel Straight. So Bottas backs off, and at that point it's a sensible thing to do, but he backs off so much. It's very much like the start of Silverstone, where he was on the inside of Hamilton and backs off, which is understandable, but he backs off so much that Hamilton is just completely let off the hook here. Even all the way up to Eau Rouge, he's just feathering the throttle, isn't backing off and then committing, and he loses his run. So the whole way through that section, Hamilton just extends and extends and extends. On top of that, there's no big headwind on the Kemmel Straight, which would have helped Bottas have basically a bigger slipstream effect. That didn't happen. So he can't challenge Hamilton down the Kemmel Straight into Les Combes, all because he's just backed off way too much and too late ultimately as well. And this we can see perfectly if we look on board with Max Verstappen to see what kind of he should have done. So all the top three start on the medium tyre, and Verstappen gets away fairly evenly with Hamilton and Bottas. Bottas, you can see already, he's got a great start and he's alongside Hamilton. And Verstappen here nicely takes the apex for the first corner and focuses on his own run. But just listen at how early Verstappen backs out of the throttle coming down towards Eau Rouge. He's actually not fussed about catching the car ahead at this point. He knows it's the next straight, the run out of Eau Rouge, that's going to be critical. If he's right on Bottas's gearbox, he's going to have to back out and lose that momentum. So Verstappen lifts off early, and then as Bottas slows again, he just halts the throttle, doesn't want to be too close too soon, and then he's flat out through Eau Rouge up the top. And now, if I pause it there at the top, he's right behind Bottas. Perfect slipstream. This is the opportunity to pass. Bottas is quite a long way away from Hamilton, and Verstappen in a normal conditions, if this was for the lead, he'd probably be through here. The problem he has, he goes to the outside, and now he gets hung out to dry really, because again, the slipstream's so powerful in these Formula One cars. Look at Lewis Hamilton ahead, stays to the right. If Hamilton moves to the left, Verstappen picks up his slipstream, Verstappen moves through into second place. But Hamilton, luckily for Bottas, stays to the right, gives Bottas, his teammate, the slipstream up to Les Combes. I don't know if that was intentional for Hamilton or if he was purely expecting a bigger challenge and that's why he went defensive. But it really scuppers Verstappen's attack because actually he did everything right coming through the corner, but with no slipstream, there was not much else he could do. And in fact, Daniel Ricciardo then has a big challenge on Verstappen himself. So if we go on board with Ricciardo finally for this one. Again, Ricciardo's blending out of the throttle quite early coming down to Eau Rouge. Ricciardo and Verstappen kind of know what they want to do heading into this one, whereas Bottas has stayed on the throttle too long and backed out too much and too late. So there's a big difference between what Ricciardo and Verstappen are trying to do and what Bottas did behind Hamilton. Ricciardo then tries to get on the throttle through Eau Rouge, and actually, with dirty air from Verstappen and Bottas, and a Renault that's quite trimmed on downforce, he's washing really wide, so he has to just slightly lift out again through Eau Rouge, and he only just makes the top of the corner anyway, so he's right on the limit through Eau Rouge. But Ricciardo then comes up the top, and here he picks up a slipstream. He can choose the left or the right from Verstappen initially. Then he slipstreams a little bit behind Bottas and goes to the inside on the soft tyres, and it looks like it should be a move that's done, but Verstappen holds on really nicely around the outside of the first part and then the third part of Les Combes, and then is just confident enough on the brakes to swing it in down the bottom of Rivage as well. So the top four in the end all stay status quo how they started, but it could have been quite different depending on who picked up the slipstream and who got that run coming out of Eau Rouge, and in the end Bottas was quite lucky with it. So that was a look into the start, but there was other action in the Grand Prix as well. For a look into what happened with Antonio Giovinazzi, why did he crash, what went on with Ferrari in the weekend, and more of those midfield battles, tune into F1 TV.